hypothetically, what if someone said to you, look, kid, you don't have time to read manga right now. You don't have time to watch anime. You first have to read a certain list of the greatest and most important books in the history of civilization. You know what I'm talking about. Wherever you live, there's probably a section of the library, a section of the bookstore where, frankly, the thinking has already been done for you. Types of books I'm talking about. And you know what? After that, if you devote yourself to this area of study for 10 years, after you can spend your time reading anime and manga. It's hard to imagine that after 10 years, after developing your level of intellectual, political, philosophical sophistication to such a high degree, that you would be willing to spend even 5 minutes going back to Japanese pop culture that is made for children and perverts.
My friend, we need to talk. Anime is for children and perverts. And don't get me wrong, we have all appreciated some big anime titties from time to time. But it's time to move on.
Quote, advice I would give to any man or woman equally. Think very carefully about any hobby, political conviction, or habit of mind that you know for a fact would put your life in danger were you convicted and sent to live in a jail. Anime is one of those things. In prison, in America, any man who is into anime is regarded with extreme hostility and derision. They are presumed to be in a category of offenders that I can't type out in the YouTube comment section. And I know why. And you know why. We all know why. There are reasons why. Now, why am I referring to prison morality? Well, how many of you in the audience have ever stopped for 1 minute to consider the world from the perspective of someone better than yourself, smarter than yourself, more virtuous and more self-disciplined than yourself? Nothing could be more irrelevant to you than if I were to point to the way a genius lives his life, because you are a self-indulgent, lazy moron and you know it. You don't hold yourself to those standards. You don't even bother imagining those standards. Oh, but the standards of people that you think are below you, beneath you, contemptible, the lowest of the low. You see how relevant those are to your life. Minimum standards you care about, not maximum standards, not your own maximum potential. And so it is that the morality of the prison yard has a special significance in our lives. What matters in prison? What is the type of honor that remains among thieves? Who is most despised in American prisons? The snitch, the informant, the betrayer. A man who has committed murder is more respected than the snitch. There may be a kind of honor in the particular murder that's on his record that the other prisoners can recognize. But one prisoner who will betray another in order to lessen his own sentence, the morality of the prisoner. And the lowest of the low, the most despised, the men who are constantly beaten and hunted and hounded and not allowed to sit down in the cafeteria when they eat their food, right? The chomos, the guys who watch anime, the guys who play Dungeons and Dragons. It means something. And I think it should mean something to you. If you spent 10 years working your way through a long list of books that you know you should be reading instead of My Hero Academia, instead of whatever the current chomo sexual fantasy pandering to the crowd, whatever the current garbage is in anime and manga. Okay? If you read the greatest, the most important, the most profound works in the history of civilization for 10 years, you know you wouldn't be able to go back to the garbage you're watching on TV now, the garbage you're reading in comics now. But now stop and think about the kind of man you're going to be 10 years from now if it's the other way around. If you spend the next 10 years reading manga and anime and hentai, One Piece, all this crap, you will be incapable of taking that step onward and upward to appreciate the greatest, the most important and profound works of literature, philosophy, politics, and you will be totally unprepared to make a positive political difference in this world.
Ain't no school for this shit. Ain't no school for this shit. You gotta be smart enough to pick up the information as you go. If you can find a nigga that could tell you that I own something, I'll give him whatever you say I own. But, cause I can't remember a nigga doing nothing for me, nigga.